Saffron is one of those perfume notes that sounds familiar but can be surprisingly hard to pin down. Most of us know it as the world's most expensive spice, the dried red stigmas of the crocus flower, used in tiny amounts to colour and flavour rice, sweets and liqueurs. But in perfumery, saffron is less about food and more about atmosphere. It can smell warm, dry, leathery, slightly metallic, dusty, hay-like, and sometimes almost iodine-like. In the right formula, it gives a perfume an expensive golden glow. In overdose, it can become harsh, medicinal, or even a little rubbery. You'll often find saffron in rose-oud perfumes, amber fragrances, leather accords, and modern spicy orientals. It's one of those materials that can bridge spice, wood, resin, and animalic notes. So today, I'll be smelling saffron as a raw material and asking the simple question, what does saffron actually smell like? Hi, I'm Mark and welcome back to Crazy Nose, the Materials Edition, where today we're taking a look at saffron, and I have three examples of it here in front of me. The first one, this is a natural material. It came to me from Perfumer's World in Thailand, and this is red saffron infusion. So this is an infusion of the stigmas of the crocus flower, and they've been infused in DPG, or dipropyl glycol. DPG is a common solvent that's used in perfumery because it is quite a good solvent and it doesn't impart much odour into the perfume, which is ideally what you want for a solvent. And this infusion is basically just created by soaking the stigmas into the DPG for a period of time, just like you do with tincturing with alcohol, and that extracts the aroma molecules. This one cost me $3 a gram, so it's not a hugely expensive material, saffron. It's a very expensive spice when you buy it at the spice shop, but it's not particularly expensive in terms of perfumery materials. So then we come to the middle one here. This is Safranal. I got this through Freighter Works. The original manufacturer of this one is Ventos, which is a Spanish company. And Safranal is actually the natural aroma molecule that you find in saffron. So the primary aroma molecule in saffron is safranal. And so this one is a manufactured form of safranal. So that one cost me $1.80 through Freighter Works. So it's a little bit cheaper than, well, almost half the price, I guess, than the natural. And then we come to the third material here. This one on my right, this one is made by Givaudan, the Swiss company. This is a synthetic. So it's a synthetic molecule that's engineered to replicate the smell of safranal. And we'll find out shortly how good a job they've done on that. But that is made by the Swiss company Givaudan. I sourced it through Freighter Works in New Zealand. And this one was the most expensive. It actually cost me $5.40 a gram, so that's unusual. Normally the synthetics are cheaper than the naturals, but in this case, the synthetic is the most expensive. All right, well, let's get into these and find out what they're like and how close the synthetic is to the real thing. I'm going to start, as I always do, with the natural material, because that's the best way to have a reference, I think. I'll put this strip in here. Oh boy, this is coming out very colourful on the strip. It's a deep yellow, even though it's called red saffron, it's a deep yellow, egg yolk yellow colour on this strip. I'll show it to you. Hopefully you'll be able to see that if the camera can focus on it. It's a deep yellow colour. So let's see what it smells like. Ooh. Wow. This is kind of almost a medicinal smell. Yeah, medicinal and a little bit iodine-like. You know, it reminds me of something that actually looks a bit like, it reminds me of betadine. I don't know if you know what betadine is, but betadine's an antiseptic that you use for wound care. You put on cuts and grazes and things, and I think it's mostly iodine. It's more of a brown colour than this, but it sort of turns yellow on your skin after a while. And this has that kind of betadine iodine smell to it. Wow, it doesn't smell at all like a spice, like a cooking spice. And there's something else in there about it too. It's almost got this kind of sort of an ether smell. A bit like an anesthetic or a narcotic. You know, if you've been unlucky enough to have to go into hospital and have a general anesthetic, if you've ever had gas, it's kind of got that smell like the gas that they give you. Interesting. Really interesting. All right, well, we'll leave that for a moment. I do have some strips that I dipped earlier, so I can talk about the dry down as well. So we'll do that after I've sampled all these. So let's come to the Safranal. Safranal, as I said, this is the isolated molecule from saffron, the main aroma molecule. So you'd sort of expect this to smell similar, I guess. This one is also in DPG. DPG kind of looks a bit like glycerine on the strip. It's kind of got an oily texture. And this is a 10% concentration, so it's not 100%. So when I said the price was $1.80, it would actually be $18 if it was at 100%. So yeah, it's actually quite expensive when you look at it like that. This is made by the French company Ventos. It's colourless. It's not got no colour like the actual natural material does. Ooh. Wow, okay. So this one is, yeah, this is more what I recognise actually is saffron, strangely. It's a leathery smell. It actually smells like suede. And it's not like a really highly finished suede. It's that coarse, rough suede that you would get on the old-fashioned desert boot. But it's a definite suede smell to my nose on here. It doesn't have that medicinal smell or the ether smell in here. It's much more animalic and kind of a little bit earthy. Yeah. It's actually got a sort of earthy tobacco note in there as well as that suede note. But really quite different to the natural infusion there. All right, well, I'll move that on that side. The last one, the synthetic. It's always interesting to get to the synthetic and find out how good a job those chemical engineers have done. So we'll put this one in and see what we've got here. This seems to be a lot more fluid. It's not oily at all, this one. It's pretty colourless, but it's not nearly as viscous as the others. Very colourless there on the paper. Yeah, so this one is a pretty good approximation actually of the Safranal. It's got that suede leather boot smell to it for sure. But it's got, instead of having that earthiness and the tobacco kind of note in there, this one actually has a cassis note. So cassis or blackcurrant smell in there. It's kind of got this little bit of fruity note going on in the top of it, heading in a different direction to the Safranal. Okay, all right. Not unpleasant, but definitely animalic. These two are very animalic, and you'll note that I've got red caps on these. I tend to colour code my materials so I can easily identify them on the shelf. And a red top means that I've identified these as being animalics as opposed to the natural, which I've put a yellow top on, and that means to me that this is a spicy note. So yeah, I put them in different classes of material, even though they're supposed to be the same. All right, so that's those out of the jar. I'm just going to now talk about the dry down. So these ones here, I dipped these about 4 hours ago. So this is the red saffron infusion. Okay, so we've lost a lot of the that ether smell and the iodine smell. There's still a bit of the iodine in there, but it's dialed right back from where it was. So obviously those molecules are light and they've taken off into the air. And then what we're left with here now, actually, you know, it smells a bit like acrylic paint now. You know the paint that you put, like poster paints that kids use, and well, artists use them as well, those bright acrylic paints. But that poster paint is the smell I'm picking up here now. So that's changed a bit, yeah, quite a bit. Interesting. So then there's Safranal. Not much change there. It's still very much that suede leather boot and the earthy tobacco smell. And still quite pungent on the strip too. It hasn't really come back a long way from where it was. Not a huge change there at all, really. I'll put that out of the way of the camera. And then lastly, the Safraleine. So the suede on this has dialed back a fair bit. And what's that's doing? It's exposing more of that cassis or blackcurrant smell. And this is almost turning fruity on the paper now. It's almost turning into a crushed berry blackcurrant smell. Yeah, but still a bit of the leather underneath that. Interesting. I think that would make a really good bridge between a sort of leathery animalic base and a fruit top, which is maybe where you might use it. So let's just talk about that. Where would you use these if you're a perfumer? And not that I'm an expert perfumer, but it's not immediately obvious where and why you would use these to me. Not like some things that smell like flowers or gourmands or whatever. It's not really immediately obvious where you would use these, but I think that this is something, if you were looking for more of a spice note, you'd probably be going for the natural material. But you've got to deal with that iodine opening in it. These two here, as I said, these are more animalic, and I think that, you know, this one certainly fits in the base of a perfume where you want to have a leather note. This is a perfect leather note, or even a tobacco. And probably that would provide a good bridge from those deep resonating leather notes in a base that would then bridge up to a spicy top note in the perfume. And then the Safraleine, well, I guess in a similar way, this one might bridge perfectly though to a fruit note like a blackcurrant, interestingly. Yeah. One thing I should mention though is that there are heavy IFRA restrictions on the use of saffron. So the natural saffron is restricted to 0.05 of 1% in the perfume formula, which is pretty low. It's like, yeah, 5/100ths of 1/100th. It's a pretty low concentration. And then, because this is a more concentrated form of the molecule safranal, it's actually the safranal that they want to restrict because apparently it can cause skin reactions. So they restrict this one to 0.01 of 1%. So it's very heavily restricted, as opposed to the Safraleine, which is unrestricted. So you can see why this one would be very popular with perfumers, and probably that explains why it's expensive because why not? They can get away with it, right? You can only really use that one if you want a saffron note. Somebody has asked me, a couple of people actually have said, oh, can you give us examples of perfumes where these materials occur? That's not really easy, but you will find them in note lists on Fragrantica. But the one that jumps to mind for me for this one, the Safraleine, there's a perfume made by Maxim. I'm quite enamoured with the Maxim lineup these days. So Maxim has a perfume called Cologne de Gare, and it's it's really a rose-oud, and it's quite a nice rose-oud actually, but the opening is a real overdose, I'm pretty sure, of Safraleine. Like, to my nose, it just opens like this almost wet suede desert boot. And it's not actually all that pleasant to my nose, but fortunately, after about 15 to 20 minutes, that kind of floats off and the rose gradually comes up into your awareness. And then it turns into a really, really nice rose-oud. But you've got to get past that opening 15 to 20 minutes where you've got this Safraleine bomb that's just hitting you in the face. And I find myself just wishing that wasn't there, that if I could just, hit the backspace delete on the Safraleine, it would be a much better perfume. But I'm sure that Maxim had his own thoughts on that when he was blending it. And it doesn't put me off wearing it. I still like to wear it, but it is a real Safraleine bomb in my view. But I can't think of any other examples just off the top of my head, but there would be if you go through Fragrantica and look for ones that have a saffron note in them. But be aware that when you just read a note in Fragrantica, in a note list, a note pyramid, it doesn't mean that it's going to smell like the standalone material as I'm describing it, because it's going to be blended with a whole bunch of other things, and the perfumer will use other molecules to bring out certain elements and nuances of that particular smell. So it's not likely to just smell like what's in one of these jars. But I hope that this helps you anyway to understand what the core material smells like. And thank you for tuning in again, and I hope it was interesting and informative for you. If you have any thoughts or comments on saffron, either as a DIY perfumer or as a perfume wearer, if there's a particular perfume that you know has saffron in it and you'd like to call that one out, please do, because I'm at a bit of a loss to think of too many of them. But let me know, and in the meantime, take care, stay safe, and enjoy your fragrances, whatever you're wearing.
Oh, my muse, you're heavy pen. A ghost I haven't quite finished yet. Lead me down where the briars grow, to the hidden root that the crows all know.